If not, can I ask Mr. Sithole to assist with a prayer? And pardon me, because the prayer will be of a Christian faith. Those that believe in other faiths, please pardon me. Yeah. Thank you so much. Olane.
Thank you, Honorable Chair. Good morning, honorable members, commissioners present, stakeholders. Can we all stand up for a prayer? Father, in the mighty name of Jesus Christ, we give you all the praise this morning. We worship you, we honor your presence. As we begin this session, we pray for your presence in the mighty name of Jesus. We pray, Lord, in Jesus' mighty name, that, Lord, my God, you guide us, you protect us in the mighty name of Jesus. Amen.
Thank you so much, Mr. Kolane. Let me first apologize that we are starting at 11 when we're supposed to start at 10 sharp. And I'm also aware that there will be many colleagues who might want to be excused by 1 o'clock. I think we'll try our level best to ensure that we stick to that. And I will, in advance, ask all those that will be presenting to be mindful of the time constraints. I hope my apology is accepted. Let me welcome all honorable members. You know, this committee, commissioners, it's a committee of doctors. There are only 2-3 people that are not doctors, and I'm going to fire them in this committee. Unless they show me proof that they are registering for their PhDs. But let me extend a sincere gratitude to all our stakeholders who honored the OCPOL invitation to participate in this process. But also on behalf of the committee and the citizens, let me congratulate Honorable Bloom, who is the oldest member of the Gauteng Provincial Legislature, who has just been honored with his doctorate, PhD. Congratulations. Others have been doctors, it's fine, but Honorable Bloom, especially because he's an elder, that's why I pick on him. But also let me indicate that as the Oversight Committee on the Premier's Office, as well as the Legislature, our mandate is to oversee the Gauteng Office of the Premier. The National Council of Provinces has referred the Public Service Commission Bill B30B of 2023 to the Committee for Consideration and Reporting. This public hearing is a platform where all stakeholders, members of the public, can make inputs on the bill. So I want just to warn members of the public, our citizens, our stakeholders, that please listen carefully, and when we do presentations, just jot down. Because at times when we have public hearings, people will raise challenges like the clinic has not given the medicines, or I applied for a house in 1990, whatever, but I've not received my house. This has nothing to do with those service delivery matters, but it has to do with a public service bill. So your views to the Gauteng province will include key inputs from all of you, which will form part of the negotiating and final mandates to be submitted and debated at the National Council of Provinces. Let me acknowledge our key stakeholders, starting with the MMC from Ekurhuleni. MMC, you are welcome. I know that you left Ekurhuleni, it was hot, and Johannesburg is not hot today. Let me also acknowledge all our public service commissioners. PSC Commissioner from the Western Cape, if you can stand up. PSC Commissioner, I don't see this. Maybe I will give them. I will give the doctors to read here. because I can't see, or is Mr. Vusi Mavuso from Gauteng? You must write better, Mr. Mavuso. Can you stand up as well? Commissioner Dinky Dube. Oh, DG. Oh, okay. Oh, congratulations. The last time we had a different DG. Thank you, thank you. Gabi Nkwanyana. You're welcome. Lerato Mutawung, Senior Investigator. If you can stand up, Lerato. Yeah. If the elders are standing, there's no reason for you not to stand. Mr. Magaman, the National Commissioner. Winnie Ngubane, who is the legal advisor for GPL. Where's Winnie? I'm sure she's outside. Oh, okay. Ms. Ngubane. The legal services from, I think, Umagunde. Okay. Oh, this lawyer, advocate, you also wrote like doctors. Tembisa Litsoko, who's also an official. Tembisa. Then we also have colleagues from the statistics of South Africa. But there are many. I'll only introduce Ms. Babalwa Nyangudzula. Oh, she's there at the back. You are all welcome with your entourage. From the public protector, we have Lerato Mutawung from GP. Again, you, okay. Titus Sibesho, outreach officer, you are all welcome. As and when other stakeholders come in, I think we'll recognize them, but we've invited so many stakeholders, including you as citizens of Gauteng. You are all welcome. And I'm just hoping that the presentations for today will be very, very much fruitful. On the table here, I've got honorable members. Let me also ask them to introduce themselves.
Bandile Masuku, member of the Provincial Legislature. Thank you.
Is Dr. Bandile Masuku.
Okay, thank you very much, Sanbonani. My name is Nomathemba Mokgethi, member of this committee. Thank you.
Is Dr. Nomathemba Mokgethi. Askai Balela, left-hand side.
Hello, my name is Jack Bloom, member of the committee.
Dr. Jack Bloom.
Hello, everyone. My name is Nomthanda Zomiso, a member of the OCPOL committee.
Don't worry, she'll be a doctor very soon.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Ayanda Ali. I'm a member of the OCPOL committee. Thank you.
She also promised that she can't be beaten by elderly people. She's going to join the queue as well. There are other two members who are outside, the Chief Whip as well as Dr. Tlou. The Chief Whip was sitting right next to me, then Dr. Tlou was sitting on my far right-hand side. My name is Ntombi Mekgwe. Maybe I can aspire to be a doctor as well. No, thank you so much. I'm the chairperson of the committee. We have our researcher, Ms. Notile Dlamini.
Thank you, Chair. Good morning, Chair, honorable members, and all the stakeholders. My name is Notile Dlamini, research support to the committee.
Can I also request that all officials just raise your hand so that you can be seen? All GPL officials are there during, yeah, okay. No, thank you so much. Colleagues, those that might not understand the languages that might be used, we have these gadgets. I'm sure those gadgets will be given to members of the public. Then you can go to channel 2 if you want to listen in isiZulu. Then Sotho is channel 3. Tsonga is channel 4. Afrikaans is channel 5. Otherwise, if you want to listen in English, presentations will be in English. Thank you so much. At the back, we do have translators that are going to be assisting us. Thank you so much. Let's go to the next item. I am going to request that Ms. Ngubane, our legal unit, to actually make a presentation. I know that she will be doing another presentation in another committee meeting, which has already started. So can we allow her? Ms. Ngubane?
Good morning, Honorable Chairperson and Honorable members of the committee. Good morning as well to all the stakeholders in this hall. As Chairperson has indicated, my name is Winnie Ngubane. I will be taking you through a very brief presentation on how we process legislation in the Gauteng Provincial Legislature. Some of you may have already had sight of this presentation or have had the benefit of receiving this presentation perhaps in our pre-hearing workshop. Please bear with us for those who have not had the benefit. So I will just quickly take you through. It's quite a short presentation, but very important one, especially in regard to explaining where your submissions, whether written or oral, fit in this entire process. So the presentation is divided into two parts. Part one is the introductory section, and then part two is where we delve into how we process a Section 76 bill in the Gauteng Provincial Legislature. Just as introductory remarks, we just explain exactly what is the legislature, and what does it do, what is its function, as well as where does it derive its mandate. So we are just basically just highlighting there that it's an organ of state. It's one of the three arms of state and coexists with other arms, example the executive and the judiciary, within this doctrine of separation of powers, right? And then it derives its mandates of oversight, lawmaking, and public participation, as well as cooperative governance from the Constitution. And in carrying out its work, it ensures adherence to the Constitution. We have our internal standing rules, as well as all other relevant laws of the Republic. Where exactly do we derive our mandate, our lawmaking mandate? So if you look at Section 104 of the Constitution, that particular section confers legislative authority on all provincial legislatures. So that is where we derive our powers to make laws. And zooming into what that really power entails, we look at Section 114, one of the Constitution, which provide that in exercising its legislative power, a provincial legislature may consider, pass, amend, or reject any bill before the legislature, or initiate or prepare legislation except for money bills. And then what we have in front of you today, or what is being discussed today, is a bill. And exactly what is a bill? A bill is proposed legislation in draft form. So it has not been finalized. That is why we're soliciting inputs on it. And then there are different types of bills that emanate from national. So you'll have your Section 74 bills. These are bills that seek to amend the Constitution. You have your Section 75 bills, and these are your ordinary bills affecting provinces. And then we have what we are currently looking at today, Section 76 bills. These are ordinary bills affecting provinces, and this particular bill before us falls within that category. That is why we are here. And then you have your Section 77 money bills. Now, exactly how do you process a Section 76 bill in the Gauteng Provincial Legislature? The second part of the presentation covers that. I do hope that you are able to see this, the writing in the blocks. Is it visible enough, or should I zoom in a little bit? Should I zoom in a bit? Okay, let's try and do it like this. And then I'll just take you through each of the blocks. So when we are processing legislation, Section 76 bills, the process starts at the National Assembly. The National Assembly, Parliament is divided into two houses, the National Assembly and the NCOP, that's the National Council of Provinces. So once the National Assembly has passed a bill, it then transmits it to the NCOP, and the NCOP is that body in Parliament that looks out for the interests of all provinces. So it will then transmit a bill to all provinces. So we first start by the NCOP informally referring the bill to provincial legislatures before the bill has been introduced or tabled. This phase is really for information purposes and planning for the legislatures. And then the Speaker of the Legislature will also informally refer the bill to the relevant committee and the relevant MEC for information and planning. And once the bill has been introduced or tabled in the NCOP will then formally refer the bill to provincial legislatures, and that formal referral will be accompanied by timeframes to process the bill. And this is really the most important phase, because it really kickstarts the process. Once a bill has been formally referred, it means that we can now start processing the bill. And what do I mean when I say process? I'll explain in the next couple of blocks. The Speaker will then formally refer the bill to the relevant committee and the relevant MEC for processing, right? And then the committee that will be dealing with the bill will prepare a plan on how to process the bill, including timeframes. And those timeframes will be guided by the timeframes that were provided by the NCOP. And this is we get to the good part. What exactly do we do when we are processing the bill in the committee? So the committee will undergo an information gathering, process. Whereby it'll receive various briefings from various stakeholders on the bill, right, to empower itself on the bill so that it knows exactly what the bill entails, what it seeks to do, where were the gaps in the law that necessitated the drafting of this particular bill. Right, so that when it comes to you, it comes empowered and it knows what it's talking about. So one of the first briefings it will receive is the briefing by the department and as well as the NCOP special delegate. It will then also receive a legal opinion which will be on the constitutionality of the bill. Are there any constitutional concerns that the committee should be aware of? Then another important presentation would be the socioeconomic analysis, which is done by our research team. And then lastly, the committee will also receive views of the provincial executive. So from the executive side, what does the executive think of this bill? Is it implementable? Is it constitutional, et cetera, et cetera. So it will receive all of these presentations in an endeavor to empower itself really and be fully au fait with the contents of the bill and all the issues surrounding the bill. Then the next phase, which is in blue, is very important. This marks the public participation phase, and that is exactly where we are at right now. So the committee, once it has concluded its information gathering phase, it will then move on to the public participation phase, and it will solicit inputs from members of the public through written submissions or public hearings. So you can make oral or written submissions. And these inputs are very important because they will be, or they can be incorporated and considered by the committee in its deliberations when they are now formulating the negotiating mandate. And I'll speak about that document a bit later on. So it's very important that your submissions are relevant and touch on the content of the bill, because if they do not touch on the content of the bill or relate to the content of the bill, then the committee unfortunately cannot really consider them. And therefore, your views will not be able to shape the conversation that the committee will have on the bill, and also, also influence the final decision of the committee, whether it's supporting or rejecting or proposing any amendments, et cetera, et cetera. So it's very important that when you are making submissions, make sure that they are relevant and make sure that they touch on the contents of the bill. I would recommend that you actually attack clauses. As the department, you'll see when the department is going through its presentation on the contents of the bill, it will touch on clauses and what each clause entails. I would recommend that you attack, if you have any inputs, rather attack the or make comments on the actual clauses. For example, I heard that clause XY, clause 5 speaks on X, Y, and Z. I do not agree with this because of X, Y, and Z. I would rather propose that we do X, Y, and Z. So that is a constructive a submission, and that is helpful, that it's a submission that the committee can actually take into account. Once the committee has concluded its public participation phase, it then goes back and gathers all the written and oral submissions that it received, and it sifts through them, and then it then has to make a decision, which will be reflected in its negotiating mandate. Now, a negotiating mandate is a document that indicates the parameters for negotiating and proposed amendments. So if there are particular proposed amendments that the committee wants to include, perhaps those proposed amendments emanated from yourselves. Those can be inputted in the negotiating mandate. And that negotiating mandate is then transmitted to the NCOP, the National Council of Provinces Select Committee, for consideration. And then once that is done, the NCOP will then provide feedback to us which amendments have been accepted or rejected, if there were any, et cetera, et cetera. Then the committee will then have to sit and and decide whether it is voting in favor of the bill, rejecting the bill, or abstaining from voting from the bill. And that decision will be reflected in a document called the final and voting mandate. And there again, as I've said, it indicates whether the committee is, the legislature really, is voting in favor of the bill, against the bill, or abstaining from voting. Oh, no. What happened here? That's the last. Sorry, technology is not my friend. How do I need to just zoom in, and it's not zooming in. Can someone help me here? Okay, I think I'm winning. Sorry about that. The NCOP then votes in plenary. Each province has one vote. At least 5 provinces must vote in favor of the bill for it to pass. So for this particular bill that is before us, if it is to pass, at least 5 provinces must vote in favor of the bill. If at the NCOP plenary we only receive 4 votes, that it means that the bill is not going through, unfortunately. So that is how that is how it works. Once it has been passed by the NCOP, it is then transmitted back to the National Assembly, which passes the bill, and then the bill is submitted to the President for assent. And once the President has signed it into law, it then becomes an act of Parliament, and it forms part of our statute books. And lastly, the very last phase, under the Constitution, a signed copy of the now Act is then entrusted to the Constitutional Court for safekeeping. So this is a very high level, flow chart of exactly how we process legislation in the GPL that emanates from the National Council of Provinces. There are a lot of little steps in between that I've left out, just to simplify the process. But this, in essence, is what the process entails. Thank you very much for lending me your ear, and I hope that it has been a bit useful in understanding how we process legislation in the GPL. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ms. Ngubane. Because she's going to leave, I will ask the audience if you do have questions for clarity only. Are there any questions? 5, 4, 3, 2, or there's a hand there. Ma'am, you can introduce yourself and ask a question. Thank you. Can you use the mic so that you can all hear?
Sanmanan, unosipho, naskopo. Manguban, umention nama section 94 la, section 74, 75, 76, 77. So if section 74, mount it's amended by who? And then section 75, you say it's ordinary. To who? Section 76, it's ordinary, however affected by what? Section 77 would say it's a money bill. Maskhuluma ngemali, sikhuluma ngento ekumele si-account, right? So makune money bill, kumele explainele in details. Ungavele uthi money bill yenzani. So ngiyakuzwa nje sisi uyakhuluma. I-slide sakho sikhuluma nana, sikhuluma nathi. It's a problem. So, sicela ukuthi manenza ama presentation, let it talk to us. I get into public participation. So, it's not public, it's committee participation. Sicela community involvement in anything because you are dealing with the community. We are parents, we are here. Whatever act is going to be endorsed is us bind that thing. So, manga sutinin. Yabo.
Let me check if we all understand the question. And I'm not sure whether we gave out the gadgets so that members of the public can hear the translations. Unless if we're all fine. But can I request that we be assisted so that members of the public have the necessary gadgets to be able to follow through? Thank you. Ms. Ngubane?
Thank you, Chairperson. Thank you for the comment or questions. What you are speaking to is the slide on the types of bills. So I was trying to explain, under our Constitution makes provision for various types of bills, right? And if you look at Section 74 of the Constitution, it makes provision for bills that seek to amend the Constitution. So if there is a bill that wants to, for example, amend Section 9 of the Constitution, which relates to the right to equality, then it will be categorized as a Section 74 bill, right? So I hope that's clear. And then again, you look at Section 75 bills. These are bills, ordinary bills, not affecting provinces. So what I mean by that, these are bills that don't come, remember I said that in the two houses of parliament, there's the National Assembly and then there's the National Council of Provinces. So for Section 75 bills, those bills ain't there. And if you look at our constitution under Schedule 4 and 5, that schedule guides exactly what category a bill should be. So, for example, if a bill relates to, just a random example, national security, so the army, etc., then it might fall under Section 75, because under the schedules, under the Constitution, it is categorized as a national competence. So that is how we categorize bills in Parliament. So those bills, Section 75 bills, are not referred to the provinces because they don't affect an area of provincial competence. I hope that makes a bit of sense. Now, Section 76 bills, going back to those schedules, if, for example, a bill falls in the concurrent legislative competence of both national and provincial, then it would mean that it is a Section 76 bill. That means that Parliament cannot decide on this bill or process this bill on its own. It must also involve the provinces. So that is why once Parliament, that's the National Assembly, is done with processing its bill, right, it then transmits it to the National Council of Provinces, and the National Council of Provinces then transmits it to us, all 9 of us, all 9 provinces. Why? Because it involves an area which touches on or affects the provinces under the Constitution. So we are all guided, all of this process is guided really by the Constitution. And then you have Section 77 bills. These are your money bills. Any bill that seeks to, allocate monies. So you'll have your division of revenues. I'm sure you are aware of DORAs and all of those kind of legislations. So those are, or appropriating money. Those bills are categorized as money bills. Again, it's found under Section 77 of the Constitution. So what I was trying to explain was the bill that we have before us is really under the category of Section 76 bills, right? So that is why we are here. It has been referred from national Parliament to us because it involves an area that also impacts on provinces. I hope that makes a little bit of sense.
Mami, ngisilungisane la sithandwa sami. Asikhulumi ukuthi isilungu noma isingisi. Isingisi ulwimi akusukuhlakanipha. Mangakhulumi lo jargon, ukhuluma nabodakhi la. Masingafiki lapho. Isilungu ulwimi. Asukubonisa ukuhlakanipha. La bengifuna ukwazi, uyabona iphepha lakhe nithi abantu bomthetho 3 pages. Izinto zomthetho zibucayi. And mangizofunda kumele ngiunderstand, kumele ngazi ukuthi mangifunda la ngiyaphi. Islide sakhe lesiphelele. Into yomthetho. Isikhalazo sami ukuthi makazosichazela ngawo lama clause nama acts nani nama bills ayenze njani. Yonke into angayisamapi. That's why ngithi into ayikhuluma isutha bona. Mara la ngikhona ngisazoba nama question angifundi le nto le. Ngizomsendela submission angina problem. But ngifuna ukuthi nanoma ohleli la angakwazi ukuzikhulumela. I understand the presentation. Khono lost but ukhulumile usisi isilungu. Sicela lokho.
Awuthi ngibheke ukuthi ama gadgets lawa so sibanikezile abahlali kuqala. Ngiyamuzwa usisi into ayiraise mara I'm sure uzwisa incazelo yami nizwe sisila ngithi asinikezeni abahlali ama gadgets. The legislature is paying for these gadgets. and abazona iziphethe, okay. Bakhona abaziphethe, bakhona abangaziphethanga. Abangaziphethanga mabaphakamise izandla baninikeze ilungelo lenu ukuthi nizithole. So ngiyabonga mangabe umbuzo uzwakele. Ngicela ke ukuthi siyeni ngoba singagxili kakhulu endabeni ye process ngoba sesizwila ngithi masiyeni ku presentation elandelayo. A presentation on by PSC on the Public Service Commission Bill, UB 30B waka 2023. Uma sithi UB 30B waka 2023, kusho ukuthi le bill iqale ngonyaka ka 2023. Sesiku 2025, kunomsebenzi omningi bosayenziwa iParliament, iNational Council of Provinces, manje seyifike lakithi and whatever imibono ezovela sizophinde futhi siyithathe siyibuyiselele ngoba thina asiphasisi imithetho kodwa sincedisa i-engagement nokuthatha ama-input siphinde siwaphindisele emuva. So ngizocela ke i-PSC izorepresentwa ubaba uMavuso, oyi-Public Service Commissioner yase Gauteng. Nyamazi ke ubaba uMavuso uyasazi uyakwazi ukukhuluma zonke ama languages mara ukhuluma very fast. Uzame ke ukhulume njenge communicator or i-public educator ukuthi sibathathe through abahlali. Thank you baba Mavuso.
Ngiyabonga mhlali ngaphambili.
Cofa phela.
All right. Igama uVusumuzi Mavuso, i-Commissioner, i-Public Service Commission, represent Gauteng. Namhlanje sizopresenta i-Public Service Commission Bill, and ngihamba no Advocate Makinde uyanozenza i-presentation achaza ukuthi le bill esize ngayo izokwenzani and ifuna ukwachieva ini. Ngihamba nama-commissioners awu-3 or awu-2, Commissioner Sil, obuya Western Cape introduciwe, no Commissioner Magaman, ose-National Office, ngihamba no-Director General wethu u-Advocate Dinky Dube, no Provincial Director uMankwanyana, and then ngihambe futhi no Thembisa Litsoko, who's one of the Deputy Directors in the office, no Madlogovu, naye who is one of the Deputy Directors. Ngiyabonga. Advocate Makinde.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Ashley Searle. I'm the resident commissioner in the Western Cape for the Public Service Commission, and I'm the lead commissioner for the Public Service Commission Bill. I thought it's very important that before we get into discussing the specifics of the bill, seeing that we're having a public participation process, we must advise and inform the community about what it is that the Public Service Commission is and what does it do. Because in order to understand the legal bits in the bill that Advocate Makinde will be talking to you about, you need to understand what the Public Service Commission is and in fact how we are assisting members of the community with challenges that they might have. So, as we all know, we have a constitution in our country, and the constitution covers a variety of issues. It speaks to the different levels of government, the different spheres of government. It says to us how we must conduct our elections, and it speaks to the role of municipalities in providing services to government or to the people. But importantly, the Constitution also creates what we call oversight bodies. These are Chapter 9 and Chapter 10 bodies within the Constitution that have been created there to assist communities with holding government accountable. So these bodies are not departments, or they shouldn't be departments. They are outside of government, separate entities with a distinct function to ensure that government does the work that government is supposed to do. And that if there are challenges experienced, that citizens have the right to approach these bodies. So the most well-known constitutional body is the Public Protector's Office. We've heard the Public Protector is represented here today. And many citizens know that if they have challenges with service delivery, the Public Protector is the body that they can approach. But besides the Public Protector, there are other bodies. For example, the Gender Commission, there's the Language Board, and there is also the Auditor General. As you know, the Auditor General makes sure that the finances that are managed by departments is done correctly. But an important additional constitutional body is the Public Service Commission. There's only one Public Service Commission in the country that is established in terms of the Constitution, and that is the body that we will be speaking about. And the role that the Public Service Commission performs is multidimensional. It's there to ensure that we monitor and provide an oversight currently over provincial and national departments. And that oversight relates to both personnel practices, so the way that officials do their jobs in departments, but it also looks at other issues. For example, we do inspections at facilities that are run by provincial and national departments, police stations, clinics, home affairs offices, and we do those inspections to ensure that the services that must be delivered to our citizens is done in the best possible way. And if there are any challenges that we see during those inspections, the Public Service Commission is there to ensure that those challenges gets addressed and it gets remedied, that things become better and problems are addressed and sorted out. We also investigate particular issues. Similar to the Public Protector that does investigations, the Commission also does their own investigations on a whole range of issues. So we are a body that is there, established by the Constitution, to support you as citizens. It allows you as citizens to engage with us if there are challenges that you might be experiencing in your particular community. And if I go back to what the bill is now intending to do, Advocate Makinde will give you all the legal bits, but to summarize the importance of this particular bill, and we're hoping that we're going to get feedback and comments and questions from the community with regards to this bill. This bill has been coming on for a long period of time. For over 20 years, this bill has been in development, and it's been going through a process, but eventually we're at this stage where we're hoping that before the end of this year, the bill will become a reality. And it's important that the bill becomes a reality because we are trying to achieve two main objectives. The first objective is we want to secure our independence as an institution. Currently, the Commission is still within the framework of government. So we're seen almost as a government department, and that's not correct. When the clever people drafted our Constitution, they didn't think that we will be in a situation where the Public Service Commission is seen as a department, because a constitutional body must not be a department. The Constitutional Court has in fact said so. So we need to be outside of government. So Advocate Makinde will explain to you how we're trying to achieve that, where we're now taken outside of the framework of government and we actually placed into a separate position, similar to what the Public Protector is, where we're not seen as part of an actual government department. And then the second important issue that we are addressing, ladies and gentlemen, currently the Public Service Commission only deals with national and provincial government departments. This bill now tries to make sure that we also have the same oversight and monitoring function over local government, so over municipalities. the municipalities that support you on a daily basis. Once this bill goes through, it will ensure that the role we play in national and provincial government now also goes to local government. And not only local government, but state-owned entities, your public entities. So for example, in the Western Cape, where I come from, we have many provincial public entities like the Liquor Authority. So once this bill goes through and becomes law, the Public Service Commission will then be able to perform its function and oversight over public entities across South Africa. And that could also include the big public entities like Eskom and a number of others. So this bill is very important because it's attempting to ensure that we become a truly independent institution. And secondly, the scope of our authority gets extended to cover local government and public entities. Advocate Makinde will now go into the specifics of the bill, but I'm hoping that we'll have lots of comments and questions from the community, lots of input on the actual bill and how you think it can be strengthened. If there are any other questions about what it is that we do, then please, we'll be more than willing to answer those. I've just given a very brief summary of what it is that we do, but you might have more questions afterwards. That is why we're here. That is why we're having a public participation process. And the public participation process is not just a talk shop from us as officials, but it's also a true engagement with you as citizens within our communities. So thank you, ladies and gentlemen. I'm now going to ask Advocate Makinde to take you through the provisions of the Public Service Commission Bill. Thank you, Advocate Makinde.
Good morning, Honorable Chairperson, Honorable members of the Gauteng Legislature, members of Gauteng community, my leaders from the PSC and colleagues from other institutions, good morning. This is the presentation of the PSC on the bill, which we call the PSC Bill of 2023. It's actually, we mark it B. It is B because it is the one that has been adopted by the National Assembly. There's a draft that we presented, there's a draft that has been worked on and accepted, and that's why you have that word B. So we are on the B version. Now, the presentation outline. We would like to introduce to you our leadership, because you can see that the Honorable Chairperson tried to introduce the commissioners that are here. We have 14 commissioners, some of them are not here, we will show you. We also want to talk about the objective of the PSC bill. We want to talk about the mandate of the PSC, the priority progress report on the PSC bill. What do we actually do that Commissioner Steele is already trying to explain, which is the product and output and the way forward. Now, let's look at the leadership. If you look at those pictures there, the first person on the top left-hand side is our chairperson, Professor Samadoda Fikeni. You might have seen him on the TV. He talks a lot about human rights issues. He's very passionate about community issues. So that's our leadership. We have our deputy chair, which is Ms. Zukiswa Mkolomba. And we have our 3 other commissioners that are at national level. One of them is also here with us today, Commissioner Magaman. We have 1 commissioner per province, and the commissioner for Gauteng is Commissioner Mavuso, who has already greeted you this morning. So we are happy to be here with him. It is his own land now. The PSC works as 1 commission, so everything that any commissioner does is owned by everybody. It's 1 public service commission for the Republic. We have 1 vacancy in the Northwest. However, that vacancy, there is a caretaker commissioner, Professor Makaya, who is looking after that province. What is the objective of the PSC bill? As my leadership have already explained, the PSC bill was introduced in Parliament in the 6th administration, and it continued with the 7th administration to achieve the following objectives. The first one is we already have a Public Service Commission Act of 1997. But what is it that we are changing in that Public Service Commission Act? It is because that act talks about public service. It says the Public Service Commission will be doing the work at both national and provincial level of the public service. And that is what we currently do. But if you look at that, it is not aligned to the Constitution. And any act which is inconsistent with the Constitution, it's unlawful, basically. But what makes the PSC do that all along since 1997 is lack of resources. They were trying to manage the resources, hence they limited themselves to public service within national and provincial government. The Parliament look at it, look at the issues, look at the problems. You have heard a lot about the Zondo Commission, and a lot of you are very concerned about all the incompetencies that is happening in the public service and public administration, and then they took a resolution and said, PSC, it's time now that you need to implement your full mandate. You must align yourself to the Constitution. And that they did, looking at the supremacy of the Constitution itself, which we'll discuss. They look at the Chapter 2 and the values that needs to be promoted in Section 195. That section says those values are applicable across the three spheres of government. It says the above principles apply to administration in every sphere of government, organ of state, and public enterprise. Now, to give effect to this, the Parliament took that resolution in 2011 that PSC, whether we like it or not, is an instruction. And there was a consultative process, and the NCOP was involved in that process as well before that resolution was taken. Now, we are now wanting to promulgate this new Public Service Commission Bill of 2023 to deal with all those resolutions and the needs and alignment with the Constitution. The focus of the bill is to establish a PSC Secretariat to enable the Commission to operate as an independent and impartial constitutional body with its own Secretariat. What do we mean by the Secretariat? Currently, we have what we call the Office of the Public Service Commission. That office is recognized in terms of the Public Service Act, and in our Public Service Commission Act that we have currently, it talks about the DG reporting to the Commission, and all other officials report through the DG to the Commission, which then means that we are working as a national department as the administrative part of the PSC. Now, what this bill is trying to do is to align both of them. We cannot be a national department supporting a constitutional body. So the PSC Act will have to establish its own secretariat. We are the only constitutional body that still has that structure. Every other constitutional body have amended and corrected that. So we'll then be establishing this secretariat to make sure that there is that alignment. Now, the implementation and the application of the PSC mandate to municipalities and public entities, which has been explained, municipalities and public entities are part of the one single country. If you look at the Constitution, Section 1, it talks about, I just want to refer to it quickly, the Republic of South Africa. The Republic of South Africa is one sovereign democratic state founded on the following values. What I'm bringing out here is it's one sovereign democratic state. That is aligned to the fact that Section 196(1) of the Constitution says there is a single Public Service Commission for the Republic. And that means if that is so, the PSC must do its work in accordance with the Constitution across public administration. Now, let's move. The achievement, what we feel that when we do this, that will be, the PSC will be able to monitor and evaluate the achievement of policy objectives and service delivery impact better, because now we'll be able to have statistics that speaks to the entire country. We'll be able to compare, we'll be able to draw on best practices and be able to speak as to where are the weaknesses and what we need to improve. Now, we also want to ensure that we are able to improve the efficiency and impact of the PSC in public service and public administration. This is part of building a capable, ethical, and developmental state. The Constitution talks about a capable, ethical, and developmental state. We are in a developmental state. That is why even our own legislation is developmental in nature. The 1997 Act took a phase. This particular bill of 2023 is taking us further as part of development. And we are trying to promote that ethical and capable state in line with Section 195 of the Constitution, which says the values must, it didn't say may, it said must be promoted, and it must be applicable to to all public administration. The PSC will be recognized as a constitutional institution in Section 1 of the Public Finance Management Act. That should have happened naturally, but it hasn't happened, but we are making sure that this bill deals with that, because as a constitutional body, we have our own vote, and we need to be recognized as that vote so that we are able to account independently and work, because if you don't have your own financial independence, it affects your independence and your ability to do your work. Now, we also need to align the condition of service for commissioners with the determination and remuneration of public office bearers. All constitutional bodies in the country, their remuneration, including the judiciary, is determined by this body. Only the PSC, although the president determines it, here we are saying we are aligning it so that we will also take into account the remuneration of public office bearers, still to be determined in line with Section 2195 of the Constitution. We've talked about the parliamentary resolution. Parliament recognizing that the PSC is part of Parliament, actually. It's an extended arm of Parliament in the way that we assist Parliament with its oversight body so that they become more effective with the report that we give to Parliament. That is why they said we must do this work and report to them. This will be in line with Section 195 and 196 so that we are able to assist with the oversight and the implementation of the constitutional bodies. This issue of implementation of the constitutional values is also a concern when you look at the Auditor General report. Commissioner Seal has mentioned many times how local governments spend a lot of millions in doing their annual reports and things like that, and it's about 1.6 billion according to the report, and even as at that, only 21 municipalities had a clean report. So that is a concern. So the whole idea is to make sure that all of these are being looked at, and that all these issues that the Auditor General is also looking at, we deal with them in a more proactive manner rather than just being responsive to the issues. The PSC is is also constitutionally enjoined to address some of the persistent governance and public administration failures which lead to poor service delivery. Like we said, we need to be proactive. Like he said, we go to the police station, hospitals, everywhere in order to ensure that there is no maladministration. This is to ensure that we have that high catalytic impact role in building an effective, innovative, developmental, ethical, and responsive public service and public administration in response to the challenges requiring improved performance and delivery of a capable, ethical, and developmental state. Having said that, what do we do exactly? All right, the mandate of the PSC. If you look at these figures here, it says the PSC oversees public administration within the public service as per Chapter 10 of the Constitution and is accountable to National Assembly. When I read this, I always try to explain, to say, when we talk about budgets, we say we have to do a strategic plan. Some people say, no, you must have a budget before you do your strat plan so that you are aligned. No, some people say, no, you can't budget unless there's a strat plan. So it's neither here nor here. They lean on each other. In every public administration, there is a public service. In every public service, there is a public administration. And that is why they are interchangeable. And that is why we need to look after the entire formula. What do we then do? We promote those constitutional values. And it is based on those founding values in the Constitution. The founding values of human dignity, equality, human rights, non-racialism, non-sexism, supremacy of the Constitution, and the rule of law. The regular election, accountability, responsiveness, and openness. That is what Chapter 1 of the Constitution says. Then, the PSC powers and functions in promotion of the CVPs, which we call the constitutional values and principles. Also, it goes on to the investigations that we perform. We do investigations on own accord. We also do investigations based on reports or complaints that we receive. We do monitoring and evaluation. We propose measures. We give directions. We also give advice. We give recommendations in the interest of maintenance of effective and efficient public administration over the public service. Now, the values that the PSC is actually concentrating on are stated in those red circles. The first one talks about the efficient, effective, and economic use of resources must be promoted. Public administration must be development-oriented. Public administration must be broadly representative of the South African people. Human resources management and career development practices must be cultivated. And that's where most people know us when we start dealing with regular appointments, promotions. You know, the Constitution actually listed it up to dismissal, up to configuration of states, and all of that. Now, a high standard of professional ethics must be promoted and maintained. Services must be provided impartially, fairly, equitably, and without bias. People's needs must be responded to, and public participation encouraged. Public administration must be accountable, very important. That is why we have this Oversight Committee. Transparency must be fostered. Section 1961 of the Constitution, like we have said, provides that there is a single public service commission for the Republic. So if the Constitution stays so, the Constitution is supreme. So we have to do the work across the Republic. Section 196(2) of the Constitution provides that the PSC is independent and must be impartial and must exercise its powers and perform its functions. Important frames and figures and words. It says, without fear, favor, or prejudice. And that's why you need to put your trust in us. We will do this work without fear, favor, or prejudice in the interest of maintenance of effective and efficient public administration. That is why the independence of the PSC is very important, so that we are not associated to any arm of government or in any way, so that that independence is not only pronounced in the Constitution, but is actualized and seen to be done. And that's what this PSC bill seeks to achieve. A single public service commission for the entire Republic, as well as the maintenance of an efficient and effective public administration, that the scope of the PSC constitutional mandate should cover the entire public administration, not just limited to public service. We have noted the provisions of Section 195 and 196, which whenever we read 196, we always read it with Section 195. When we say we give directions, we say, okay, in terms of Constitution, you are required to be effective and efficient. So if you are having a maladministration here, then you are not compliant. And that means we can direct you to perform your functions in line with any legislation that is an act of Parliament. Section 195 of the Constitution sets out those fundamental principles that govern public administration, which we have said, and it includes those transparency, responsiveness, impartiality, and efficiency. Now, what does the bill say? The bill is divided into sections. The first part of the bill deals with a preamble. The preamble sets out the purpose of the bill, which says it is to regulate the Public Service Commission in accordance with the provision of Section 196 of the Constitution. Because even if you look at Section 196, it makes reference to Section 195 to say you that they are together. And that's what you are created to. The whole of Section 196 is the PSC. So that bill is giving effect to that. It also regulates the procedure for the appointment of commissioners of the Public Service Commission. If you look at Section 196(9) of the Constitution, it says there must be an act of Parliament which must flesh out the process of appointment of public service commissioners. This bill is making sure that that happens. Also, Section 196(3) says that the functions of the PAC must be further expatiated and clarified in an act of Parliament. So twice in Section 196, it makes a requirement for us to have an act, which is the Public Service Commission Act. Now, it also deals with the process to provide for the establishment of the Secretariat of the Commission to support the work of the Commission. Yes, the Constitution made provision for the administration that is to be established. And this bill is now saying, how do we establish this administrative arm of the PSC to support the PSC work and make sure that it is functional? Thank you. It is also to repeal the Public Service Commission Act of 1997 and to provide for matters connected therewith. Part A of the PSC Bill 2023 deals with definition and application of the Act. A lot of definitions are contained, but many of the definitions we try to align it to existing legislations, such as the issues of the local government, which is defined in Section 151 of the Constitution, public entities as defined in terms of the Public Finance Management Act, the public service as defined in terms of the Public Service Act, the Secretariat of the Commission is now a new definition as defined in the Public Service Commission Bill of 2023 and other critical matters. In terms of application, the bill applies in relation to administration of the public service and public administration. However, the term public service and public administration was covered under definition, so that is clear. Now, Part B of the bill deals with the Public Service Commission itself. It talks about the constitution of the commission. As we know, the commission consists of 14 commissioners, which we have shown you as our leadership. These 14 commissioners are determined in terms of the constitution. We cannot change it. Some people think that we have a bloated structure, but we cannot change, we cannot reduce. 5 commissioners are for national, 1 commissioner per province. And some people ask the question, why don't you have commissioners for local government? We say, but local government are established in terms of the provinces, as part of the provinces to do service delivery and to cover every sphere. I know it's a different sphere, and there are 5 different types of local governments, but they are still established by the province. So the commissioner in the province covers local governments. That is the point I'm making. And the 14 commissioners cannot change because they will still be feeding into that processes. So the 5 commissioners are also at national. National is supposed to be looking after the entire country, and there is a lot of policy directive that goes on. So those 5 commissioners also work like that. However, as one single public service commission, all commissioners can work in any province because they all work together as one entity. Now, appointment of commissioners. This clause deals with the recommendation of the minimum requirements for commissioners. As we know in the Constitution, it talks about appointment of a South African citizen who is a fit and proper person. Now, we need to give effect to that. What is a South African citizen who is a fit and proper person? It's difficult to define fit and proper person, but the bill looks at other criteria that can help to assist and say, okay, these are the things that might assist. We are now talking about professionalization of the public service. In terms of the professionalization of the public service, we are trying to improve ethics. We are trying to improve the issue of code of conduct across the board. And then we said, let's extend that also to our commissioners. Therefore, we then says, if you look at the Constitution, Section 1968, it talks about, it must be somebody who is knowledgeable in administration, public service, and service delivery. So looking at those 3 criteria that are stated in the Constitution, recommendation was made of these related fields, which are like public administration, business administration, human resources, human behavioral sciences, finance, social sciences, law, or other related fields. We then added the issue of 8 years management experience. People will ask, why do you want an 8-year management experience? Because this is also a leadership where you'll be dealing with HODs. All the HODs, because we do public administration, all the HODs are required to have an NQF level 9 before you can apply for a job of an HOD. So for that to happen and for us to be equivalent and to be able to work and be able to deal and have the same level of professionalism, an NQF level 8 was recommended. Now, disqualification of appointments of disqualification from appointment as commissioners. This clause is aligned also to the constitutional provisions. Constitutional provision talks about who is not qualified, but we try to put more, which says that the disqualification criteria, and part of the things that we say there is that, for example, you must still be a fit and proper person. There are certain laws of certain people who are convicted of certain criminal offense. We are not talking about people who are convicted of offense because of political, historical events. That's not, because it's specific. We did cite the legislation that is applicable there. And then if you have that kind of a thing, or you've been dismissed for any financial misconduct, or you've just committed some financial misconduct or found guilty of a criminal offense by the court recently, you would not be qualified. Because even in the public service, if you are dismissed for a misconduct, you cannot be reappointed in the public service for a period of, there's a cooling off period of about 5 years. And that's what we try to introduce in this area as well. So there is also clause 6, which deals with limitation on performing other work by commissioners and renewal of the term of office of commissioners and vacation of office by commissioners. This clause deals with limitation of other work, which then means that you have to apply for you to be able to do any other work. You are a full-time commissioner. And in terms of section 19610, the commissioner must not be a political office holder and cannot perform remunerative work outside the public service without the president's approval. Yes, the president's approval, but yet the portfolio committee that is relevant must also be notified. A commissioner may resign, having given notice, and if that notice is granted. It also addresses other conditions that may lead to vacation of office by a commissioner and grounds for removal of a commissioner. Because in terms of section 196, I think it's 196.9, talks about if you want to remove a commissioner, there must be a parliamentary committee that must sit, or provincial committee that must sit and look at those issues. You have that inquiry and so on. And then the commissioner, if found guilty, can be removed, just like you did with the public protector. But then that will have to be aligned to the rules of that legislature or parliament. The chairperson and deputy chairperson of the commission. All commissioners are appointed through the same process. However, the designation of a chairperson and deputy chairperson is done by the president. Now, if both the chairperson and deputy chairperson are absent or are unable to act for any reason, another commissioner may be designated by the president for a period of 30 days. 30 days may be renewable if there's still a good reason to renew, but the whole idea of putting that time frame was to monitor and to make sure that there is no vacancy. Because if there is a vacancy, then another commissioner must be designated. Now, Clause 8 talks about remuneration and other conditions of appointment of commissioners. Like we have said, we want them to be aligned to that recommendations of the Independent Commission for Remuneration of Public Office Bearers. This committee has its own legislations. They should have included the PSC, but I think they made an omission there, and our act now is just correcting that, and hopefully they will also be correcting that going forward. The PSC normally conduct inspections. We have that in our current bill, so we just carry that forward. Inspections is very important for us because sometimes you have to be there visiting local and to see what's happening and all of that so that you know the state of service delivery. And then investigations by the commissions, power of the commission to conduct investigation within the public service and public administration to have access to all required information. Information could be people, it could be documents, it could be visiting the site so that we are able to do these investigations correctly. We also do summoning of witnesses where there is difficulty in getting these witnesses. You issue something like a subpoena, which is the same thing as a summons, and those summons must be honored. And they must bring those documents. You can subpoena documents, you can subpoena people, you can say exactly how you want them to come into that hearing so that the hearing is effective. Clause 12 deals with access to report of the commission. Normally we issue letters on the report to people, but we want to be issuing the report. But while we issue the report, we'll also take into account the Promotion of Access to Information Act, because if you are dealing with personnel issues, you might have things that are very personal. So we'll have to deduct and see. But the reports will be issued, taking into account the provision of that Promotion of Access to Information Act. Clause 13, implementation of decisions of the Commission. One of the purposes of this bill is to give the PSC tooth. The people have been saying PSC needs to be reinforced, given more powers to be effective, so that our recommendations and directions are not ignored. They need to be implemented. So what we then did here is to then say that the relevant executive or relevant person to whom a decision of the commission has been issued must implement it. We now call it a decision. In the past, we used to say it's just a finding of a committee and of the PSC. Now it's going to become the decision. When you make a finding, you make a decision. And that decision will either be communicated as an advice, a recommendation, or a direction based on the nature of the case. Even if it is a recommendation, we now have case laws that says the recommendation of a constitutional body should not be ignored. You need to come back to the PSC within a period of 60 days to tell us what are your implementation plan. Are you going to act on this recommendation? How are you doing it? Or what have you done? Have you started acting on it? So that we know that you are not ignoring those things. Because it's no point doing a report and then the report is just sitting on the shelf. We want to see changes. We want to see how it is effective. And when there is an employee that is supposed to be disciplined, the disciplinary action must be taken accordingly, so that there are those corrective measures and consequent management within the public service. So if we then issue you a direction, we are then saying those directions are binding. Naturally, we know it's binding, but we are now putting it clearly in this act that these directions are binding. If you have any reason whatsoever not to implement a PSC direction, then you must take that report on review. You have no right to sit on it and ignore it. You must either act on it or you take it on review. So that is what this legislation is now saying. Clause 14 deals with independence and impartiality of the PSC. The PSC, as we have said, must do its work without fear, favor, and be impartial. We are not partial, we are not biased, but we want to say that the ethical value that we have put out there to say it's binding on everybody, we are also bound by those ethical values. That's why we have included this clause to say that where you have any pecuniary interest or any interest which may preclude you from performing your duty in an unbiased manner, you have to recuse yourself. It is common sense, we are doing it, but we are making this clearer in this bill so that everybody can see that those ethical values are applicable even to the PSC itself. Now, obstruction of the commission. If you obstruct the commission, it says no, all other bodies must assist the commission to be effective. That's what section 1963 says. You must assist the commission to be effective. Therefore, if you obstruct the commission, you are committing an offense. And this clause then provides for remedies and penalties for where a person who obstructs or hinders the work of the commission. So even if it is an executive authority, that executive authority should be held to account by the legislature or even the National Assembly or the relevant portfolio committee. Secretariat of the Commission. The Secretariat of the Commission is the administrative arm of the PSC that we are creating now. The Secretariat of the Commission was initially established in terms of the Public Service Act, and we are moving ourselves out of the Public Service Act into the PSC Act. So this Secretariat is going to be established, and yes, the DG will become the CEO, Chief Executive Officer of the Public Service Commission. My Chief Executive Officer is not looking at me. Okay. Now, clause 17 deals with delegation of Commission's power. For the PSC to work effectively, there has to be delegations. So we have a governance rule which establishes PSC subcommittees. So some delegations go to those committees to say, you are in charge of this, you are assigned to do this. But at the end of the day, we report to plenary. Plenary is all those 14 commissioners, and it is the highest decision-making body of the PSC. Also, for the Chief Executive Officer to be effective, the executive authority of the PSC is the chairperson of the PSC. So that chairperson must also delegate powers to the Chief Executive Officer, such as appointments of persons here and there, so that things can run smoothly within the organization. Finances and accountability. The finances of the PSC is still going to be managed and governed by the Public Finance Management Act. The Auditor General will still audit the PSC. General, the PSC is a legal entity and can be sued in its own name. And yes, that is what it is recognizing there. We make rules, we have governance rules, we have grievance rules, we have complaint rules, we have rules on issuing summons, we have rules that will also permit us to also do some management fees, because that is a new thing because of the limited resources. We're looking at other ways of funding our work. So part of this is that we will be charging management fees in some areas. So such rules will be gazetted as we go along the line. It also deals with repeal and amendment of laws. Those laws are there. The transitional provisions. Now, taking into account the fact that we need to establish the PSC Secretariat, this Secretariat needs to be capacitated to perform this full mandate of the PSC. Therefore, for the first year after the PSC bill becomes an act of Parliament, we will have to establish the Secretariat and try to resource it and put the necessary human capital and budget and things that is required. Having done that, within 3 years of the establishment of the Secretariat, we will then progressively implement our mandates across the municipalities and public entities, because it will not be able to happen all at once. So what that means is that as members of the community, you need to come with us in a learning curve where you have to be patient with us. You have to tell us, PSC, this is what we want from you. Then we all work together, we come up with a program, we assist each other, and that learning curve becomes better and better as we go along. So we have that transitional arrangement to enable us to roll out the work in a progressive and smooth manner. Now, the progress on the PSC bill to date, as we said, the bill started in 2011, long time ago, and we've been working with many ministers since then. The PSC bill was then published in the National Gazette for public comments on 9th of June 2023. A notice was also published in 2 newspapers, Inputs were received from many people. We also had many meetings. We presented to FOSAD, we presented to so many ministerial committees, departments, other Chapter 9 institutions. We had many workshops. And subsequent to that, the PSC bill was then approved by Cabinet in September 2023 for tabling in Parliament. This PSC bill was certified by the Chief State Law Advisor and went through the first to the fourth reading. The PSC bill 2023 was then tabled in Parliament on 13 October 2023. This bill was also published by the relevant portfolio committee, which is the Public Service and Administration, in Parliament for public comments with a closing date of 16 February 2024. The 6th administration could not finalize the bill in Parliament, and this bill was then taken over in the 7th administration, where we are now, as a priority bill. And since then, they've been assisting us to work on this bill. So on 25th July 2024, 7th administration revived the PSC bill. The PSC bill was then presented to the Portfolio Committee on 4th September 2024. They held public hearings between the 29th October to 2nd December 2024. The Portfolio Committee adopted the PSC bill on the 5th March 2025. This PSC bill was then presented to our Minister of MPSA on the 17th of March 2025 in preparation for the second reading of the bill in the National Assembly. The bill was adopted by the National Assembly on the 18th of March 2025. The bill is now before the National Council of Provinces. This is where we are here now for further debate. The revised version of the PSC bill was adopted by the Portfolio Committee and the National Assembly. It's what we are presenting to you now. It's the one that has already been approved at that level. The bill was then presented at the NCOP on the 13th of May 2025, and that it was in the Select Committee of Cooperative Governance and Public Administration, Traditional Affairs, Women's Settlement, and Water and Sanitation, where you have all the permanent delegates from the provinces sitting. And that is where now the permanent delegate has brought it to Gauteng, and we are here before you. This bill was then presented to Gauteng Legislature on the 30th of May 2025, and also to COCTA Portfolio Committee on the 10th of June. The bill was further presented to the Speaker of the KZN Legislature on the 11th of June 2025, presented to the Western Cape Legislature on the 18th of June 2025, Capricorn Municipality on the 18th of June 2025. We've been talking about the work of the PSC. This is just a little bit to explain the products and the outputs that we do. We do research in public administration practices, and this includes human resources management, ethics, labor relations, tools and service delivery matters. We also prepared reports and fact sheets and guides. After our analysis and research, we do that kind of analysis and provide guidelines. This is how you do this is how you do that, which can be used as a benchmark across public administration. We'll work on things like investigation of grievances and complaints of individuals or communities and so on. In this area of complaint, we also do things which we talk about maladministration. If you are not satisfied with certain service delivery issues, we also deal with it under complaints. And then we deal with Citizens Forum, where we also engage with other government departments and members of the community to see that they are able to respond to some of the challenges that the PSC is picking up. The CVP promotion. CVP is that constitutional value and advocacy. This is linked to ethics, the code of conduct, policy development, decision making. We also conduct inspections. Like we had some people died in some hospitals in KZN. We are currently busy with those inspections to see why the doctors are dying there and what's going on. We facilitate assessment of performance agreement of HODs and DGs in the presidencies and the Premier's office. And we are hoping that this will be extended also to the municipal managers. Way forward. This PSC bill has been consulted with a number of stakeholders as stated above. Therefore, the implementation of the PSC mandate in relation to local government and public entities, as we have said, will be suspended while we establish our secretariat. We needed you to just know that there is those transitional arrangements so that you don't expect it like it's going to be rolling out. So you need that patience and coming up with us so that we are able to move smoothly. So the implementation of the PSC bill across public administration should commence fully within 3 years of the passing of the bill into an act, and the PSC will progressively build its capacity. Because as we establish the Secretariat, we'll be building our capacity to make sure that we're able to roll out. We all know that local government plays a crucial role, and it is the one that is closest to the lives of the ordinary people. Hence, its achievements and failures or challenges are attributed to all institutions across all spheres of government, including parliaments and legislatures. So what we are saying here is when there is no water, people would not say local government is the one not giving us water. Government is ineffective. They don't do their work. We are not going to vote for them in the next election. It's all government. And what does government depend on? Public servants. We are the tools of government to do the work. So when services are wrong, it's wrong with all of us. So service delivery challenges are most visible at local government, because that is where people receive it. So capacity challenges or unevenness in capacity are more prevalent in local government. And some of these public entities are implemented to be fast service delivery, delivery agents of departments. So when they are not also effective, we need to come there and say, national, are you also capacitating this public entity? Why is it that this local government? Because they're all interlinked. Government is one, common change. So we need to be able to see where is this bottleneck happening. Therefore, it is important that the values and principles set out in Section 195 of the Constitution be observed at all government spheres, institutions, and organs of state in public administration. Because if we are all bound by that value, it will help us, it will save us money, because we'll have a conscientized public servants that will be able to work properly. Equally, the PSC is at the initial stage of its learning and relationship building. Today, we are part of our relationship building process about the mandate, structuring, system, prescript, and process of this important sphere of government. To avoid problem, patience is essential by the PSC and all stakeholders during this learning and relationship building process. The President acknowledged this and says as follows: we need a state that is capable and competent, underpinned by a professional public service. South Africans want a state that treats all people with dignity, humility, and respect. A state with leaders who are prepared to serve our people with complete dedication, and public servants who are ethical, skilled, and properly qualified. The PSC absorbs and believes in what the President has said. Therefore, the PSC focus on the government priority of building a capable, ethical, and developmental state. That is our focus. And we are now saying to all of you, we all have the responsibility to make municipality work. This is a call to collective action. Thank you. But as you might want to see, that's our DG. She's here in person, and that's our management team, just for you to note them, in case you want to see them one day when you are bringing a complaint. Thank you. That is it.
Thank you so much. And thank you very much for a comprehensive presentation. We are now going to allow our stakeholders who are members of the public or the citizens of Gauteng to make their own inputs. You can ask a question related to what has been presented. No, don't leave, so that when there are questions, I know that it's not only your question, but a team will assist. You can ask a question, you can make an input, but if your input is not related to the presentation, please allow me to stop you, because we need to be focused. Thank you so much. I'm now opening up for hands. Okay, let me start on my left-hand side, but at times I know that there could be people who don't like to talk, but they will prefer to write. You can write in any language that you feel comfortable with, but also if you want to speak, you are not forced to use English. Speak in a language that you feel comfortable with. So it's sizozwana ngithi. So I have noted there are two hands at the back. Uputila. No, Mama, if you can just stand up. I'm not sure where's the microphone. Okay. Xolani kunobhuti lapha ngicela ukuthi asukume. Yeah. No, Mama, if akusumama ungixolele kunomhlali ofake ihood ngathi maroon. Okay, ubaba. Then there's a third hand. Ngicela usukume siswami. Kunobaba futhi la number 4. Butwam. Ubaba la. Yeah. So izandla engisazinotisile on this side zi4. Mhlambe singaqala kubhuti lapha ngasemuva.
Thank you, Chair. Igama Humphrey Wagachaka from a Protea clan. I have 22 questions here, but I'll minimize it to 4 questions.
Uyakwazi nokusummarize futhi.
Yeah. Okay, my first question is that how does the bill strengthen the PSC independence? That's the first question. The second one is that how does the bill address the concerns? How does the bill address concerns about the political interference? The third one, I heard the speaker that was mentioning the National Assembly, but I wanted to get it clear, the PSC, where are they actually reporting to who, to which minister or a certain portfolio? The last one, if I want to lodge a complaint to the PSC, what are the processes? What must I do? Thank you, Chair.
Yeah, lezi ezinye bazakubuzela abanye citizen. Over to you, Baba. Thank you.
Chair, Nagi Mahasha, Jan Mahasha, Region D, right here in Pimville. One, let me just compliment, even though 31 years into democracy, think they are coming now, 11 hour. Why? The sign of this type of exercise. A couple of months ago, if I remember, there was something here. Lebohan Maile, MEC, I think he was one of the persons, the person who'd been delivering the scene. The question which I raise, because of the gap, Yahori, people are not educated. People that are pensioners. This type of exercise, it needs some workshopping. The sign are there. So many protests in the country, across the country. Right? Recommendation been done. Tulima Donzela did quite an very excellent job. Justice Zondo, former, did a very excellent job. The Auditor General, year on year, problems and problems across the 3 spheres of government. Now, the question is, who appoint all this Public Service Commission? Is it a mixed components or is political aligned people? By the way, let me just assure you that the resident, they are the customers. They are the king. They are the one who pays all the bills of the 3 spheres of government. Right. And this written, this in which I can see here, when do you want to, this in writing? Is it a talk shop? Because the elections are coming next year? Or what? Please, people, it doesn't mean you don't like the organization, but they're hurtful. The betrayed will be betrayed. By the way, we've been around in the country. We've done a lot of things in the country. Corruptions. Right? If you look at this, so it is too big with plus minus, if not over 10 million people. Does the public know about this gathering? The answer is no. What's the problem? I think you need coaching and mentorship. There are professional people, I'm one of them. I've done a lot of things during the UDF, the committee, the Soweto Civic Association, resulted into Committee 10. 1976, Black Management Forum, affirmative action, we came up with the idea. Empowerment, but now we've been sidelined. Those are some of the things which, people, I think you must go and do intro inspection. People are helpful to an extent that even if you call meetings, they don't even come because there's nothing that's going to happen. Recently, the president of the country, who used to be my colleague from donkey years ago, he came up with a national dialogue, which is overdue. Why now? Because of the failures? To extend the failures. Cadre deployment, killing all the HR. I want to use, just an input, any question times. Otherwise, there's no need for me to come here if I can't say. I can't voice my voice. Right? Mr. Chair, anyone members of the committee, go and think about it. I mentioned critical things. Time to come and eat, come and waste people's time is over. Thank you.
Thank you. Maybe before we go to the third person, ithi ngiqolise kumuntu omdala lapha. Ngoba ngithe mama instead ukuthi ngithi baba ngoba makahleli phansi ubukeka emuhle kakhulu. Ngiyaxolisa umuntu omdala ngokukubiza ngomama wena ungasi umama. Thank you so much. Let's go to the number 3.
Yeah, sanibonani. Sikhuluma unosipho futhi naScope. Sikhuluma ngepublic service, right? Eyasemzansi, right? Ngizoxolisa ku advocate mangabe ngiyaku-offenda kodwa ngizothanda nje ukubuza ukuthi owala ekhaya na. Bese ngena la. Because usebenzisa ama clause esikhathini esiningi. There's a clause for a report, there's a clause for finance, there's a clause for independence, there's a clause futhi yoku-reinstater. So if umuntu umthole enecala, nimdismiss, bese nithini niyamrepeala or yena uyarepeala whatever lento nishoyo ngicela nje ungichazele lapho. Because mawuzodismiss umuntu sidukuduku bese siyambona sizoba ne-question. And then nithi nina nisebenza subs, clinics, home affairs, you name it, right? Mangikhuluma nawe la, kune case ye fraud e-home affairs. Abantu ngizwe kuthiwa boboshiwe, kodwa abanye bangaphandle. Kanti isebenza kanjani? Money talks like ekhaya. I-subs, there are cases, mina ngisebenzela umphakathi mama. There are cases you find umuntu ugqekezelwe, ukuthi amaphoyisa azothatha ama-print, they take days. Number 1, i-fingerprint iyafeyida. So manisebenza lapha nibatshela ukuthi makune case evulwayo, as much as umuntu athola i-case number, immediately so, thumelani trauma unit, yothatha ama-fingerprint ibabuye. Because ayisebenzi. Ama-clinic as we speak, sekunama-clinics abavalayo. That's why ngikubuza ukuthi wakuphi ngoba bathi bona ama-foreigners mawangangeni ema-clinic wase-South Africa. So maybe. Because ziningi izinto ezenzakalayo. Sinale tendency angazi noma into yasemhlabeni kuthiwa subs kugcwele abantu baseLimpopo besigwarana nalo sisi. So manilungiseni le nto leyo. I-criteria yenu noma i-process yenu yokuhire mayisebenze because there's a clause la yoku-account and the processes of hiring. So can you fix that? Because ayisebenzeli thina. And then it only applies to provincial and national. What about local? Because you are nothing without the local. Next year, sizobe vote for the local. Nisibeka kuphi? If nina nizothi nina national province. Iqala phansi idali, iqala ku seed before iba isihlahla. So sicela nithi manikhuluma lapha isilungu nibe nisicabangela because thina la yithi esinivotelayo. And then ukhulume nge 1961, 1962. And then these are the laws where kwezinye izinto i-administration yeni ihamba ishayisana. Ayihambisani. So administration yenu ninama secretary hlalani phansi. That is why bengicela ukuthi sicela manenza izinto involve community. Because ngathi manihleli lapho bengukobservile sithandwa sami. You were giving presentation, not even observing the audience. Are they still attending or are still listening to you? Abanye babhorekile omunye uzidlalela ifoni. But size ku public services into ezibalekile. So nakho lokhu uyakunaka ukuthi lo muntu engikhuluma naye unginakile na noma not or uphusha isikhathi. Ku Eskom public service, right? As you speak, angazi noma mhlambe niyayistela lento Eskom njalo una bekane load shedding, sekane load reduction, seka change ama box, but I service yakhe akayichange. Abantu banama box angaziwa nini. Angikhumbuli mina baze ekhaya bathi sizo renew ibox but R500 bayayifuna. So sesibhadala R500 ne 350. But infrastructure yabo kusase yakudala. Johannesburg Waters labo bantu labo every year ba renew ama pipe but mina 45 years angikhumbuli bazile bathi bazosifixa ama pipe. Kusase nama pipe amabhunu. So i-service yeni ihamba phi? But instead ukufrustrate nje umuntu omnyama. Sesize sijayele ukuthi sabo bradaki. But lalelani ubu bradaki bethu buzoyenza ukuthi sivala amagate. Ngeke ningene, ngeke niphume. Ngoba mase sithanda ngeke kube mnandi. So manithi manihleli lapho nikhuluma nathi nis understand. Because umuntu omnyama akalu if into ihamba right. Lungisani wonke lama department, subs, clinics, home affairs, you name it. As we speak, kunama pensioners are frustrated in the community abakaholi from March. Kuhlelwe. Thina sihamba siyobuza hayi batsheleni baze bazobhalisa futhi. Umkhuluma ngomuntu omdala la. Kunoma ufike ngo 8 o'clock la. Bekangakadla uqala ukudla ngo 10:30. So izinye izinto nje asizenzeni nathi. Sithi sisatapa lama table wenu wama GPL nimcabangela udaki. Umasipala akasenzi nix. Benina lento mina ngisakhula ngikhumbula ukuthi bekufika abantu bavele bakhathi ihlahla khlala ku clean. Amajordo abantu angcolile. Mina nginehlahla ekhaya. So you'd find ukuthi isihlahla sakithi silwele next door ngiyocabana nomakhelwane. Kanti bengazi ukuthi umasipala usebenza every after some term uyeza azokhathi ihlahla but abasezi. So ququzelani. Angithi nithi you account for reports. So when they are sending reports and you are saying good close number 19 and 18 or number 10, which you are doing investigations. So close number 10, do a thorough investigation. Don't just say you are doing an investigation to us, whereas you are good, you are slouching in your couch.
The last point.
All right.
Okunye uzakuletha in writing. Kuno sis la uzazithatha ezinye uziletha in writing.
No problem. Masipala futhi. Ama Apollo lights, street lights, kunama potholes amanye ahlanyayo. Forever there. So khuluma nomasipala. Ayenza izinto zibe right. Mamela abantu babhadala ama taxes, right? So lo mali le mangayenza into ezi wrong. Yazi singahlala singabi nokudla la but isazi ukuthi sinomphumelo yaphambili. But ngathi la sizela ukudla sisakufuna. Sifuna i-product thini ne-process nezinto ezi-right for abantu abamnyama. Because manga esentini or ebhasona ngeke ngithole yonke lento le. Ngiyabonga.
Bengicela ukuthi ngibuyise umhlangano. Namhlanje sikhuluma ngebill ye-Public Service Commission. Asikhulumi nge-service delivery. So that sibe ni focus. Ngiyawa understand amanye ama-issues enwarayizayo, ama-issues adla umzi abaluleke kakhulu. Kodwa uma singathatha zonke izimvo nelezi ezifanele ziye kuma-public meetings waboma-councillors, asizukuvala lo mhlangano. But asizukuyithola into esinibizele yona. So ngicela i-focus. Namhlanje sikhuluma nge-Public Service Commission. And ngiyacabanga ukuthi uma epresenter u-advocate laphaya uchazile ukuthi i-Public Service Commission inama-commissioners ayi-14. Bekazama ukuthi aye kuwo amanye siwa-introducele earlier on so that singayilololo sigcine singasazizwa ukuthi sithini. But angisho ukuthi izinto ezidinga i-service delivery singazixoxi. Ngicela nizibhaleni phansi nizilethe ngoba singama-public representatives kumgomo wethu ukuthi sizithathe sizimukise la faneke ziye khona. Njengala usisi ukhuluma ngeihlahla. Ihlahla namhlanje sizazi and ngiyabona nje nala ngaphandle izosiqabanisa kakhulu nabo makhelwane. Kunomoya omkhulu mara sixoxe ngazo namhlanje sithandwa sami. Let's allow number 4.
Chairperson, Libao Potapotileng le Dumedis. Kiale Dumedisa and Libito Lawrence Molatela from Sanko, Region 14. Who are the objectives? Honalento Zabshoga Zagdi Twaile, Public Service Commission. Hore. Ha billiona eka atle ya approve ya ba molao. Ditshebeletso di tla ba betere ho public service. Ho tse ding tsa dintho tse ke di boneng kapo tso buang ka tsona ho di objectives ke monitoring and evaluation, which in our view is lacking. Hula tajoka role ya Auditor General. Hape role ya Auditor General itla ka nako dintho se di etsaetse tse seng right. The resources that government se di sebeditse. And ka nako nngwe ho ba thata le ya Auditor General a indicator hore mona ha wa tsamaiswa dintho hantle. Ha o be bobebe ho kgotlisa ditjhelete tseno ka bo expenditure tseno tse lahlehileng. Mohlomong ha o ka ba le some internal control system tse bang teng hore ho be le internal auditors tse auditan those internal control systems hore di a latelwa. Hobane Auditor General o tla fumana ditjhelete se di sebeditse. Ho be le mechanism tse etsang hore those monies ha di tswe fela. In municipalities, what is executive mayor on a power? My view ke hore the staff executive directors le bona ba be le power hore if there's non-compliance ya the legislation, they must advise. Marabaskaba fella who advise, but they must not implement. those resolutions. It's about a majority has approved, or majority in the council has approved. If that approval is not lawful, mustn't be implemented, and I think this commission will do a wonderful job if it can be given the capacity. Because how no appoint a executive directors must comply with the requirements of the position. And these must be legislated, must come from the legislation. Thank you, Chair.
Any hands this side? Yeah, ngicela usukume sithando sami. 1, 2, emva kwakasisi ngapha. Yeah. Number 2. Number 3, I think uputi ofake i-cap nama specs. Then number 4, your hand is up. Yeah. Number 1.
Thank you very much. My name is Sarah Matlaila. I'm representing a community police forum from Uvel. I'm confused here because what is presented here is just similar to a public protector office, what they are doing. So I really don't understand here what is happening. Are we cancelling the office of public protector and continuing with another office? That is my question.
Number 2.
Dumela. Hona yang go evaluate le go monitor and tell us how so that the municipalities ba tlogele go ja ditšhelete ga sokola.
I'd like to ask the question, how is the Auditor General going to account portfolios are being audited? Meaning, is the Auditor General going to give us the report back to the PSC? And then, is there going to be any corruption in the auditing in all the portfolio? Maybe, for example, especially in housing, because there's a lot of corruption there. And with the competence of the people from you guys from the panel, how sure do we know that, that they will compete and be pinned in the PS? Thank you very much.
Number 8.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Paul. So I'd just like to maybe just emphasize 2 questions that 2 of the members of the public have mentioned. The first speaker mentioned procedurally, what are the steps to be taken to bring a matter forward to the PSC? The second matter that the lady has just mentioned as well is where does the role of the PSC and the public protector overlap? What is distinct to the PSC that the public protector cannot address, or maybe is not equipped to address? The third question that I have is that with this bill now in effect, I believe on the presentation it said the 13th of May, is it retrofitted? So existing matters and past matters, also things that they can, if unsatisfied with the way in which they were dealt with, are they matters that can then be brought forward for re-evaluation by the PSC? And the fourth question that I have is that over and above the recommendations, I believe one of your colleagues mentioned there that you make a decision now. I'm assuming that the findings, as stated, being decisions now, have a greater impact and are not just findings, because findings don't necessarily result in action being taken. And so my question would be then, once a finding is made, how is it then, as Gauteng Legislature, then it being taken into something that can be put into effect? Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. I think I managed to allow all the hands that were up to make inputs. However, we're not stopping today. You can still send your inputs through writing, but the team will tell me the deadline as well as to when can you make inputs, especially the last speaker who said what is going to be the process. We'll also deal with that later. Thank you so much. Can we allow the DG to respond, to assist with the response? But other members, I'm sure DG, because she is an engine of the PSC, but I will allow even commissioners to actually assist where we need to. Thank you.
Ngiyabonga Mam Mkhwe. Ngithanda ukubingelela futhi igama lami uDinky Dube njengoba sebashilo ukuthi ngu-Director General. So bengithi nje just to preempt question kaSisi Nosipho ngichaze ukuthi mina ngizalelwe la eSoweto eMidlands. We will answer the question about my colleague earlier. So ngizozama ukuthi ngiphendule most of the questions, but njengoba sekashilo uMamikho ukuthi ama-commissioners nawo akhona azo-assista. So i-question kabhuti uHumphrey Chaka ubuze ukuthi i-PSC izo-strengtheniwa kanjani ngale bill. So two important provisions as Advocate Makinde colleague yami present ashilo. The first one, ukuthi right now, because of its structure institution, uthola ukuthi i-Office of Public Service Commission, a government department, and that's why uthola mina uDinky Dube as the Director General, is a national government department. But i-Public Service Commission yona, ngoba establishwe i-constitution, is independent from the government. And the main purpose yayo ukuthi i-oversee i-government ukuthi isebenza njani. So, i-question ye-independence ye-commission then raises the difficulty yokuthi how do you oversee the very same department ekunikeza i-secretariat support. So this bill izosiza ngokuthi once it gets passed into law, let government department ukuthiwa i-Office of Public Service Commission will no longer exist. What we will have is only the Public Service Commission. So, ngiyacabanga ukuthi Babu Humphrey uke wezwa let's say South African Human Rights Commission, or maybe even a Commission ye Gender Equality. So, our institutions now are established with a constitution. Chapter 9 ye constitution njengoba uCommissioner Sile bekashilo. Ma ungawabheka uzucompare nathi thina i-Public Service Commission, thola ukuthi wona they are just one independent organization, only the Human Rights Commission. And then the commission in a support yayo, structure sakhona abarun administration, zihediwa i-CEO. Kodwa i-Public Service Commission right now, ayinayo i-structure sayo eba assista ama-commissioners with admin. I-assistwa yi-list National Government Department okuthiwa i-Office of Public Service Commission. So that is the one point ezos assist ukuthi assistantine i-PSC ukuthi ayisebenze separate from i-government. The second provision ebalulekile ngalesi bill ukuthi izosinikeza amandla ukuthi right now i-commission mayiqeda uku-investigator i-issue ama-recommendations. And it is often the talk ukuthi but ama-recommendations are not binding, it means they are not effective and all those concerns. So manje le bill le sezoyenza ukuthi once i-commission ya-issue i-recommendation seyenza binding to i-government ukuthi i-government you cannot just ignore ama-recommendations we-Public Service Commission kuzomele wa-implement. Kodwa mhlampe if ukuthi i-government department ayivumelani na ma-findings ama-recommendations wethu, then i-act ithi instead of just ignoring ukuthi ungawa-implement ungamaneke uye e-court uyowa-reviewer. So that is the most important provision because then seyisho ukuthi ke if i-commission seyiqedile umsebenzi wayo yathola ukuthi mhlambe kunezinto ezi-wrong ezifanele ezilungisiwe in order ukuthi i-government ikwazi deliver the services that we all expect, quality services. And if i-commission ithola ukuthi no, maybe la administration something has gone wrong, siya recommenda or sinikeze advice or sinikeze direction okuthi is binding, it must be implemented. So what does it mean effectively? In practice, it would mean ukuthi ama recommendations, directions, and advice ye-Public Service Commission sewazothola the same status as the remedial action ye-Public Protector. Ngizwile abantu abaningi bomphakathi ba reference public protector yiyo institution esiyazi kaningi nathi sonke. So basically lo mthetho lo uzosiza ukuthi nathi sibe ne same status with regards to ama findings wethu njengoba kufana ne remedial actions ye-Public Protector. So then ke uButham uphinde wabuza ukuthi thina as a PSC si reporter kuphi. So i-structure soku-reporter is set out to section 196 wayo i-constitution. It as an independent body, thina Public Service Commission, se account ku parliament. So ama commissioners wethu our account to minister njengoba ukuthi which minister, they don't account to minister or anyone in the executive government. So se reporter ku parliament. However, uMinister we-Public Service and Administration ku-national government, uye uMinister ophethe le portfolio, and then uphinde kube uye futhi uMinister ozothi whenever njengamanje bekune process ye-budget uzoya e-parliament a-represente i-budget vote ye-Public Service Commission. Kodwa lokho akusho ukuthi ama-commissioners are accountable ku-minister. No, ama-commissioners are accountable ku-National Assembly. And then Tina, as the Secretariat, si accountable commission. Often you find the national government is structured to look at DG or reporter go minister. In the Public Service Commission, good different ngoba DG or reporter go the commission, the full commission, all 14 commissioners. Pin the futhi ngoba chairperson we commission umthetho uthi uye oyi executive authority. So ngathola ukuthi on a day-to-day basis mina ngihlala ngikhulumisana no uchairperson uSomadoda Fikeni, so uye oyi leader ophethe commission. So that is how the current structure is. There is, however, a line of communication no minister with Public Service and Administration, so that whenever ayohamba ayoyenza budget vote speech sakhe siyakhona ukuthi simsupport by indicating what are those important issues as a Public Service Commission. Then on the process yokulodge a complaint ngiyacabanga ukuthi le izo answer namanye ama questions. So as we have 9 commissioners in all the provinces, we also have national commissioners. We have, in terms of ama offices, nama office I-10 in the country. So all our 9 provinces zinayo office ye Public Service Commission ekuguthi ucommissioner usupportiwa i-team. Equally as a national office, our offices are based in Pretoria. So for example, la eGauteng office yethu ikona eJohannesburg. And then if ufuna ukulodge complaint, you can either come in usivakashele office and then i-team izoku-assista, or ungasibhalela uthumele i-email. So all channels ezikhona were able to assist you. Were available now social media as well for those who are able to maybe contact us there. We do have a Facebook, for example, ne Twitter. Namhlanje ngoba besazi ukuthi sizohamba siyokhuluma no members womphakathi sesathi no i-team yethu yase Gauteng office ayibe khona la. So if maybe khona abanye abafuna ukuthi bafaka ama complaints, so we are able to then sikunikeza ama details ngakhuluma mhlambe after a meeting, so that sizokwazi ukuthi siku assist. And I think that this will also address a question le ebeyibuza ukuthi ke how do we make sure ukuthi we are accessible? Ngifuna ukubheka ukuthi beyibuza ubani. Yeah. So how does the PSC? Yeah, so we do have AMA offices in all the 9 provinces. And of course, the Public Service Commission is the one that is housing what we call the National Anti-Corruption Hotline. So as Babu Mahasha Bekuluma talking about some of the reports, the Auditor General and the reported issues around the corruption. So you are able to then call Public Service Commission through the National Anti-Corruption Hotline, who indicate if there's any issue that you would want to be investigated, any allegations of corruption. So that is another platform within which you can use Uguzo's contact. There were a number of questions that relate to the work that the Auditor General does, the work that the Public Protector does, vis-a-vis the Public Service Commission. So in order to answer those questions, it's important to see as a PSC, see part of a forum that is called a Forum of Institutions Supporting Democracy. All those constitutional bodies, as established with Chapter 9, your Public Protector, Human Rights Commission, Gender Commission, as well as Chapter 10, which is us. So mawuvula Chapter 10, sayesithanda ukuthi thina sithi as a PSC we are the only body that you find in the chapter 10. So a number of people bazi Chapter 9, but mawabheka baningi bona, but thina we own Chapter 10, we constitution. So but le Forum of Institutions Supporting Democracy is when the forum ends ukuthi sikhona ukuthi sihlangane nawo amanye ama-constitutional bodies to make sure ukuthi siyakhulumisana issues that maybe need all of us, which sends joint investigations, but we also use that to try and avoid any duplication of efforts. So for example, Mama wawubuza ukuthi Umam Sar ukuthi lo msebenzi usuyenzayo ngokubona kwakho uyafana nalo we-Public Protector. Does it mean ukuthi if le bill lena passes, the Public Protector will then be taken over? No, i-answer lapho ukuthi cha, i-Public Protector izoqhubeka naye yenza umsebenzi wayo. Public Protector is a constitutional body just like us. Into esiyenzayo ukuthi sizo-avoida ukuthi senze repetition of umsebenzi. We then work together. Saye sisane futhi nama-agreement esiwabiza ukuthi memorandum of understanding, sibe nama-relationship yokurefera ukuthi no, i-case mayifika ku-office, njengamanje mhlampe makhona abafuna ukuzivakashela in our office eJohannesburg, bafake i-complaint. So i-team yethu izoyifunda ibheke ithi no, ake sibhekeni ukuthi thina ngako ama-expertise wethu, ama-resources esinawo, is it a case that we can deal with it until the end, or maybe it's a matter that we can call our colleagues, the Public Protector, Public Protector, this one, we think that you can deal with it more effectively. So we work together namanya constitutional bodies. Then with regards to a question monitoring, Put Lawrence, yes, you are absolutely correct. This is one of the important areas of work, the PSC, because the Constitution ithi asikwazi ukuthi nje sihlale nje and wait for complaints, whether it's complaints from members of the community or complaints from public servants. Kwathina kufanele sibe proactive. Njengoba sizile namhlanje si drive size la community hall. Manga singabona nje ukuthi there's maybe any issue that is of concern to members of the public. So was ukuthi proactively thina se engage ne government. Whether it's the provincial administration or a national government, to say, you know what, we're concerned about a service delivery issue in this area, and then we advise on what needs to be done. The important work we do around monitoring is what we call on-site inspections. So you find that our commissioners in all our provinces will go unannounced, bahambe bayovakashela indawo service delivery sites. Home Affairs was flagged by OCPOL as one of the cases that you are concerned about. We have done a lot of on-site inspections, Guma service centers where Home Affairs, we've issued a number of reports where we actually recommend what needs to happen in order to ensure the speed in the delivery of, as the example that you have given, or there is an element of criminality in there. We also work very closely nama law enforcement agencies, all those institutions. We work together nama SIU. We will refer cases to this, including say SAPS. But we don't just stop there, because we are still the oversight body. So if it is indeed that there's a case that has been referred to the SAPS and you are feeling there is no progress, you are then also have the right to say to the commission, no, PSC, I now want you to investigate SAPS because bad delay in finalizing the cases. So we do have the powers to do so. And then on the questions, that relate to e-performance, Yama public entities like ESCOM, the only takeaway I would want you to get from a meeting and a presentation here to namhlanje, ukuthi if a community njengoba ikhona seyizwile ingasupporta ukuthi le bill le iphasiwe, yiko ezokusinikeza amandla ukuthi ke sikwazi uku-investigate izinto ne-performance yamanye ama-state owned entities, ngoba you are correct ukuthi right now we can only deal with matters ku-national ne-provincial department. And so, i-purpose yanamhlanje, and I must say, as a PSC, we really appreciated the Gauteng Legislature for having taken the lead. It's not long that we presented to NCOP, and Gauteng is the first one to have taken the lead. And I guess ngoba umuntu ozalelwe Johannesburg, when they say when Johannesburg sneezes, everyone catches a cold. So one expects that indeed Gauteng will take the lead. And so what this bill then does, izosinika lawa mandla ukuthi sikwazi ukudila ne cases kuma municipalities okwamanje asikhoni, but that is the main purpose of this bill, which we can then be able to go to even municipalities namanye ama state-owned entities. Ngiyacabanga ukuthi I have covered most of the matters. I do want to say, Sis Nosipho, ukuthi ngizazwa ngocolleague yami Advocate Makinde ukuthi uyafuna ukukhuluma na, kodwa I'm sure a question lo boyibuza about nationality. Ngiyacabanga ukuthi kuyacaca nje ma umuntu ekhuluma ukuthi whether you can tell ukuthi whether is originally born a citizen or a naturalized citizen, but I can confidently say that she is a South African citizen by naturalization. She's been in the country for quite a long time. Thank you very much, Chair. I don't know if our commissioners would want to add.
Maybe DG fanele sisho ukuthi baningi abanye bethu esingazalelwa ngeJohannesburg legislature ngoba we are located in the Gauteng province ukuthi silide, not about Johannesburg. Ngizabiza le ndawo engizayelwe kuyo yasemaplazini bese sengithunuka abanye amanxeba nje like abo Dr. Masuku. Kodwa ke akusiukuzalwa ukubaluleka kwento esizoyithula ngoba sifuna ukuthi abahlali or ama citizens abe ne input ewase Gauteng ngoba le bill affecta aba citizen wase Gauteng. So ibaluleke kakhulu nabahlali esiba inviteile la akusiba se Johannesburg only. Ngizwile kuthiwa ebase Randfontein abakafiki. So iRandfontein ise Western and provincial commissioner wam ubuya Western. But ngizovulela uDr. Masuku ayenze input then ngivumele namanye ama members uma ngabe kunento abafuna ukuyisho bayisho ukuze sikwazi ukuthi siye ngasemapalini sikhabele ngasemapalini ukuze sikwazi ukuthi siuvala asikwazi kune yeah maybe before Dr. Masuku ithi ngivumele uCommissioner Makameni ngathi bofuna ukwenza input.
Yeah, mine is just simple. I want to say that our DG has clearly articulated the responses, and I think they are clear.
Angazor bayakuzo Commissioner.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
So
yes. But I want to say, must tolerate this. If this bill is passed, it will give us more teeth, and there will be greater accountability and consequences. It cannot be business as usual when this bill is passed, as far as the PSC is concerned. But I also want to thank yourselves, Chairperson, and GPL, for having been proactive in leading the process. Thank you.
Dr. Masuku.
No, thanks, Chair Ngiyabonga kakhulu. I mean, I was born at Christian Paraguanath. And I happen to have the fortune of working with the person who did the Caesar on my mother when I started working on. So why I want to start with that I've worked in the public service for almost 15 years, from 2005, and I've been through all levels. And when I exited, I was the head of department of obstetrics and gynae in Telemogwerane. So I think I reached almost a higher level of SMS. So my observations that I've made about the Public Service Commission is that it also tend to be, I know you talk about that the powers must be reinforced to be able to implement and enforce your recommendations. But what I've experienced is the element of disruption and interruption that comes in with the work of the PSC. The regulations were released recently. And I know that there are different sectors, the JSC and so on. But we need all the bodies that represent the public must have a standard process which the public will be confident that they are actually neutral, not politically biased. But I think my point here is that maybe we need, from the side of Parliament and Legislature, that we recommend that all these structures, whether it's SAPC, where all these boards which represent the public, must have a standard process of being appointed or disappointed and so on. The last point is the issue on that there's over-regulation and I'm not sure how to describe oversight here, like it's duplication, triplication of oversight on one entity or anything. The public protector is there. I think the member of the public from the CPF raised it, Osara. But it seems like it's duplication. If it's getting public protector, kusasa ngeni PSC, and tomorrow ngeni SIU, and on the same process, and then staggeringly all the reports get actually released. So I'm not sure if we can't have just one body that will do one oversight on public service matters, all of them on service delivery matters, instead of having all these bodies that are there, public protect, there are resources that are put in there. SIU, they are also doing the same. There's competition, one person there wants to be known as a corruption buster and so on. The public protector also comes in. Then the PSC also comes in. So it's over-regulated, I think, and maybe it's a discussion that might not be here, localized with this discussion. It requires a different one, but I think it needs us to take a look on this, because there's over-regulation, I think, and I'm not sure what is the term, those who have done a Model C English or who have done English properly in university can give me a term. But I think there's just excessive oversight that is done. Thank you.
Can I request the Commissioner, because there were issues that we were going to respond to? Commissioner Sim?
Thank you, Chairperson. Commissioner Mavusa will follow me on a few specific issues. I just wanted to respond. There was a question from the floor with regards to the process of appointment for commissioners and how fair that is, if there's any political interference. And the honourable member that spoke last also raised it. So I think it's important to note that the process for appointment of commissioners is not something that's pulled out of the air and it's a protocol document, that's hidden in the workspace of the PSC. The appointment of commissioners is actually regulated in the Constitution. So Section 1968 of the Constitution actually spells out how a commissioner is appointed. So there is a process regulated by the Constitution. We are not appointed willy-nilly. There's an application process that all of us go through. We've got to comply with certain requirements. The bill has now strengthened some of those provisions regarding the appointment of commissioners. But we go through that process. We compete fairly, transparently. If it's a national commissioner, the process is managed in the National Assembly. If it's a provincial commissioner, the Constitution dictates that that process is handled in the provincial legislature. Where I do agree is that there needs to be some sort of conformity in terms of the process that is scheduled in the provincial legislatures, so that there is consistency across the country. But that is a matter that we have discussed in the Portfolio Committee, but ultimately it's one that the provincial legislatures will need to ensure that strict criteria, protocol, etc., is put in place with regards to that. But I just wanted to emphasize that when it comes to the appointment of commissioners, it's strictly in terms of the Constitution, with no political interference that takes place in that process. Thank you, Chair. I'll hand over to Commissioner Mavuso.
Sanbonan, it's good. Thank you very much. I want to start me questioning up with Paul when he raised the question of possibilities of overlap between the PP or Public Protector and the Public Service Commission. Truth be told, there can never be any overlaps because the functions and responsibilities are very distinct and are clarified in the Constitution. But if one was to look into the genesis and the history of the Public Service Commission, it was instituted as way back as 1912. And it began to have a change over the years until its current form, Konamanje. So in other words, there has never been any confusion as to the roles and responsibilities of the Public Service Commission. The issues that Dr. Masuku is raising, or engagement, on a lighter note, I do recall at one instance, he was very upset with me to say that I seem to be a hired gun, of commissioners to check whether was I parochial in my approach, or maybe was I being personal, or maybe I overstepped the mark. So it can never be that whatever I do might appear to be pointing out at settling scores or what have you. If that becomes the case, then I'm not worthy to be a commissioner. I have to be removed because I've now overstepped the mark and doing things in a manner that is not consistent with the Public Service Commission. I'm aware about the issues that you've raised, Dr. Masuku, and I think it's important that maybe at a different forum we should engage in order to resolve those issues or the perceptions that might be ensuing pertaining to those particular matters. But as it were, we do our utmost best to be independent and to be focused onto our responsibilities and do what law and the Constitution demands from us and nothing else. Thank you.
Okay.
Chair,
Commissioner,
yeah.
don't mess up my meeting because
I'll just make
I
one
gave
small
you time and you gave to Commissioner Mavuso, so don't.
Apologies, Chair. I'll just
Please.
make a short comment, and that was on the issue of overregulation. And that's often, you know, a retort that Chapter 9 and Chapter 10 bodies are faced with, that the sector is overregulated. But, you know, if I want to be disingenuous, I can say that if there is overregulation, then we shouldn't have the vast scale of corruption, non-performance, poor service delivery, etc., that happens in our country. Because if there were, you know, too many institutions that are playing that oversight role, then the opposite would apply. We'd have a very secure and stable environment, and unfortunately we don't. I made the example of the AG's report a few weeks back, where local authorities would always tell us that they overregulated in that space. But the AG found, Advocate Makinde mentioned it, 1.6 billion rand spent on appointment of consultants to do financial reporting and financial statements. And from 219 municipalities that utilized external consultants, more than 40% of those municipalities, their statements were non-compliant with the AG requirements, despite using consultants. I don't think there's overregulation. I think there's maybe a little bit of miscoordination, but certainly not overregulation. Thank you, Chair. That's my last comment for the day.
Chair, is that it's the other way around. You wouldn't have all these institutions. So if you can create efficiency and capacity in one, let's say Parliament Oversight Committee, on like our committee, OCPOL, we might not need PSC to do another parallel process. But we can engage on that.
Thank you very much for the comments. I think what we need to be doing is to say, especially coming from the inputs from our stakeholders, let's not try to defend, because we are human beings. And as human beings, we do make mistakes. But at times the issue of, because remember, you are commissioners now. You might not be there in future. There could be other human beings that might be coming in. The issue that Dr. Masuku is raising of the competition might want to arise. And it is in the human nature that you can make mistakes. So where we have erred, we need to come back to the citizens and say, we have made a mistake. I'm not sure, Commissioner Mavuso, whether you were here when there was because I think I'm trying to tap into what Ubaba Uden said earlier on, to say we shouldn't make these processes a talk show. Whatever recommendations and the decisions must yield positive results. I think also other inputs that we receive is that these institutions or these processes must ensure that service delivery is never compromised. I'm not sure if you recall, Commissioner Mavuso, there was an issue of one colleague from the health department. I won't mention the institution within the health sector. They raised complaints to the legislature. But as we read the complaint had nothing to do with the legislature. Some of the complaints or issues that were raised had to be dealt with by the Public Service Commission, others by the AG. And we even said to the complainant, this is the route that we're going to take, because the office that this complainant wanted, because remember, citizens have a right to demand, but it becomes our responsibility to explain the different roles and responsibilities, and also explain the processes. I'm sure other inputs were going to that route to say, how then is going to be the process? We must explain the process, but also allow those institutions to deal with the matter. Because at times, and it happens, Dr. Masuku, with the petition system, you'll find that this complainant comes to the legislature because there's an e-petition system. But they also go to the public protector, they also go to wherever, and you'll find that you're wasting resources that are limited, all investigating one matter. Instead of using the forum, share which area will be covered by which institution, and explain to the citizens, because Ubabu then says citizens are not educated enough about the roles and responsibilities and who must do what at what stage. Even the timelines, I'm sure we should not even defend to say, Tina, we're better than any other person. But what we need to say to the citizens is that we'll endeavor to improve how we treat citizens, including our outreach departments or units. They must go out and teach citizens on what is it that is available for them to be able to use these institutions. I think that is my wish. But also what at the end, Kolane, in our screen, let's put the email addresses, because I've checked the package. There's nothing from the Public Service Commission. But there is a package for State South Africa. There's a package for the Public Protector. That's why the Public Protector will be known, because in all the platforms that we have, they will come with their leaflets that they hand out to citizens, for citizens at their leisure to be able to use them. We also invited municipalities, by the way. We have not received apologies, because remember, this bill will also affect them. It was only the Eguruleni that brought the MMC. But we would have loved them to also make their own inputs as to how do they see the bill assisting or not assisting them going forward. So let's ensure that we work together for the sake of our citizens. We are voting for you. And by the way, umabethi ba votela thina, bas votela ukuthi senzeni na ukuthi nisebenzele bona. And I could see the pain Sis Nosipho, and I've observed, Sis Nosipho, you attend many public gatherings of the legislature, and many a times you make that input to say, whatever happens must be for the good of the citizens. As in a choice, this is what the Constitution demands us to do. Where we make mistakes, the citizen says we must come back and indicate and apologize, but let us strive to ensure that these platforms are zibi ama talk show. And even the feedback at some particular time must be given. See, we're too busy in our offices and forget to bring ama feedback. So what we're going to do as well, because the process does not end today of getting inputs. In terms of this legislature process, it is still open. You can still write up until the 10th of July. Namhlanje ingaki 26. We still have few days that we can ask citizens to write, and we're going to put the email address you can stand up where all the inputs can be deposited. At times people even call her midnight, she tries to respond or even take ama responses. So we're going to put a system so that you write down, so that during your leisure you will be able to write, because at times I was immediately, but maybe later you might want to post something. So let us strive to ensure we work for the better part. We do have presentations that we receive from the Office of the Premier that will also send to you, because it was presented to us about their thinking around the bill itself. And I know that with the committee, we also made our own inputs. Those will also be tabled to you. Yeah. Can I request those that can write? No, Aksu, Mr. Penny, Miss Penny, Mahato. Usase miss, agaga change. B mahato@gpl.gov.za, where you can make inputs. Kuno Miss Notile Dlamini, who's our researcher, whom you can also send. And kuna numbers as well that you can use. Then there's Miss Gabisile Nkwanyana from the office, Umbono O, Angitu O Uti Office of the Public Service Commission. Ne email address as well as the phone. So I think this answers the question as to if we want to reach you, how best. Remember, if you want to lay a complaint, you can still raise it with us, Tina Sezoye redirector to them. So singers valeli, I can we work together, because the Constitution just gives the mandate for all of us to work for the communities. Eating bonge, ukba kona kwenu. Today it's very cold. I'm sure Niabona and I'm catching cold. I'm in Johannesburg. I'm catching cold. Angike Mpumalanga lang hlala khona. So sengathi sibonge nje ukuba khona kwenu, because you beninga chooser ukuhlala amahita neitofu or nihlale ezindlini zenu eyingubeni ukuze nibe warm in this cold winter, but you opted to come because this bill is important. It is inbonge kuleyo ndawo. Enkosi sengathi rikayikela ka khotso sibabulise nasemakhaya nabanye abangakhonanga ukuthi beze sibatshele ukuthi i-bill is in motion. We can still make our inputs. Thank you so much. I'm not sure, are there any other lunch? Okay, but it's ngadlula nje same place where we started. Sithole nje amanzana ngathi lawa ayabanda. I'm sure khona futhumele abakangitsheli kahle kodwa as we go out I'm sure sizathola into yokufudumeza. Thank you so much. Nihambe kahle. Thank you.